Waking up to the shockingly brilliant news that the Director General of the BBC, Tim Davie, resigned late last night, along with the corporation's head of news, Deborah Turness. Basically, they've admitted to deceptive editing of Donald Trump's speech over the Capitol riots. I don't know if you picked up on this. An astonishingly big story. We have watched Tim Davie survive scandal after scandal, be it Hugh Edwards, be it Gary Lineker, be it Greg Wallace, Bob Villan, that vile human being that shouted deaf, deaf to the IDF. We've watched Martin Croxall, that newsreader, be censured for saying pregnant woman instead of pregnant people. We've watched Gaza documentaries, you know, voiced by Hamas officials' children. We've seen their views on the trans argument, and we've listened to their left-wing bias. And now they're all up in arms because they're blaming Donald Trump for bringing them down. This is the article, the Panorama interview that did it finally for Tim Davie. First, you'll see what Panorama and hear what Panorama played. Then you'll hear the truth. This is appalling. Have a watch.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you. And we fight. We fight like hell. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
It is unbelievable, and as you wake up this morning, as you go about your daily business, I would love to know what the BBC now means to you. Should it be defunded? Should it be thrown out? Should the licence fee go? They are a huge organisation that I think has just got comfortable and needs to be answerable to the people who pay for their existence. It's a different market nowadays. Donald Trump on Truth Social overnight with lots of capitals. The top people in the BBC, including Tim Davie, are quitting/fired because they were caught doctoring my very good, perfect speech of January the 6th. Thank you to The Telegraph for exposing these corrupt journalists. These are very dishonest people who tried to step on the scales of a presidential election. On top of everything else, they are from a foreign country, one that many consider our #1 ally. What a terrible thing for democracy. Let us know what you think this morning. 0344 499 1000. Also in the mix for your delectation. We're getting, apparently, if you're the government, we're going to get asylum seekers out of hotels by giving them 100 quid. Yes, more money, 100 quid. And if you were thinking over the weekend, oh, I'm so glad that we've sorted out the prison thing. Just to cut, that's happened again. A Palestine Action protester who was in the nick, he just said on Friday, do you think I could go to my brother's wedding? And they said, absolutely. Go at 10 and come back at 5. He hasn't come back. HM Wandsworth, it doesn't have any gates. The world's worst prison. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Actually, we've got some breaking news. BBC Chairman Samir Shah is expected to apologise and provide further details on that Panorama episode that aired the edited speech by Donald Trump. He will give his response to the Culture, Media and Support Committee today after it asked how he would address concerns. We'll keep you updated throughout the day on Talk. Right now, delighted to say a very good morning to the Deputy Leader of Reform UK and a man with several opinions that will be very interesting to hear. Richard Tice. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very good morning to you, Jeremy. I sense a certain gloating in your presentation this morning about your rivals, the BBC.
Not gloating. I'll tell you how I see it, and I'd love to know how you see it. I think it's a cancer from the top of the BBC downwards. I understand the importance, Richard, of having a state broadcaster. I would have thought it pertinent for that broadcaster, that state broadcaster, to be unbiased and to be balanced, and yet it seems to have allowed scandal after scandal to be passed off as if the rest of us are mad, or as some journalists from the BBC were saying over the weekend, it's the far right out to nullify democracy. The truth is, and I listed them, Hugh Edwards, the paedophile who's still walking free, Lineker, who spouted anti-Britishism and was being paid £1.5 million, Greg Wallace, Bob Villan, that's anti-Semite, Martin Croxall. The list goes on. I'm going to go straight to it with you because I've had this question and I'm not allowed to accept any word salad. When you get into power, says Richard, and Nigel's on the show later, will you commit to defunding the BBC, Richard Tice?
Look, I think there's no question the BBC is in the last chance saloon, and we're seeing an institution that is rotten from the very top. It is essentially dysfunctional in the way it runs. But I'm going to try and be optimistic to start with. There's much of what is produced by the BBC and some of the sporting coverage, some of the programmes that do things like Strictly, which is brilliant, and in a sense everybody loves. The issue is actually with BBC News and whether or not that has maintained or completely lost its impartiality. And I think we all know that it's completely lost it. So that's the core of it. But here's the thing. It's taken them a week to apologise, and they still haven't done so because they couldn't agree a statement, because the BBC board is at war with itself, and it has led to, I think it just typifies the whole problem with the organisation. And
well, we broke that news a minute ago that the chairman, Samir Shah, is expected in front of the...
Yeah, but Jeremy, when you look at the statements by Samir Shah so far, and by Tim Davie, and by Deborah Turness, the head of news, who's just resigned as well, there's very little contrition and apology from them. There is a degree of arrogance about it, which I think typifies the leadership.
So how would reform deal with that arrogance? Because I think you're absolutely right. And the reason that so many people are angry this morning, and it can come down, they'll say, about the licence fee. But for me, a bit like the NHS, this body has been allowed to garner so much control and so much power that it doesn't seem answerable to the very people whose existence it relies on, which is the British taxpayer. I'm being straight with you. Do you not think that it is time for the BBC to not be paid money willy-nilly, but rather prove that the very value of the programmes you talked about, Richard, means that I want to subscribe to pay for it? Surely that's only fair in the market we're in.
All those things have got to be looked at once they get through this current crisis. But there has to be, for it to try and justify its charter, and for those who want it to stay as it is, they've got to prove that they can turn this around. And, otherwise, more and more people will say, we've got to completely change the whole thing. So, as I say, it's the last chance saloon. But I do want to just emphasise this point. The rot is around the leadership and the board structure and BBC News. I think, there's many elements of lots of the other programmes. Arguably, the BBC is trying to do too much. And actually, why do you need things like BBC Arabic? Actually, why not just focus on looking after the UK and doing BBC World? Stick to what you do well, which they've then ended up not doing well, and remove that institutional bias, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's climate, all of these things they've got to do so much better on. They're just announcing an inquiry into their climate bias. To which I say, well, as long as it's independent. If it's not independent, what's the point?
I do take your point, and I will say, Traitors, for example, has been the most successful television programme of the last 10 years, and you touch upon Strictly, and I absolutely get that. But for me, there is now a point. You're right about the news service. To me, listen to this from Jackie. I've said for decades that the left has infiltrated the BBC. They must be set free to broadcast their left-wing ideology, and we must not be made to pay. So I think that the subscription argument is really where the debate is at. You can like what they do on one side, Richard, but you would have to say, if you're J.K. Rowling, if you're that Gaza documentary, it's almost, that joke sitcom W1A or whatever, it rather sums up, they're just a bunch of virtuous, they talk to you, they look at you. Did you see Nick Robinson over the weekend? Anybody who disagrees with our brilliant output is a far-right activist. It's extraordinary that they don't believe the BBC, that they should be treated with the same rules, if you like, and the light being shone as the rest of us. And they don't. They've got away with it for too long. You'd have to agree with that.
They have, absolutely, because of the dysfunction at the top, because of that degree of arrogance. There is an issue with the funding of news channels in that, for example, Sky News in 36 years has never, ever made a profit. Just think about that. Yeah. So BBC News has been sort of cosseted in a very complacent, decadent way by the fact that it's got permanent funding. It doesn't need to worry about it, so it can go off and do its own thing. And
but there's the argument. If you're not having to justify in terms of how many people click onto you if it's online or watch you if it's terrestrial, then you are free. And all the people who for years have gone, you're being a bit harsh on the BBC. I don't think so. I think there's an ideologically left-wing based theory in that organisation, and it's just this smugness. And yes, you're right, there are good programmes, but there's a lot of people, millions of people I suspect in this country, who really want to see change.
Here's the other key point, Jeremy, which is trust. And some of the BBC in a sense is one of the foundations of being British, really. We used to be able to trust the government, trust the police, trust the post office, and trust the BBC.
Yeah,
and trust in all of those four things is seriously under threat, and that's very damaging for UK PLC.
Imagine that, the days of trusting the BBC and the police and the government and getting to see a doctor. Absolutely outrageous. Now, Richard, we need to chill here because this is, as if that wasn't bad enough, love to hear from people. This is the place the nation comes to talk. Apparently the Labour Party, and I'd like you to compliment them enormously, this morning we learned that the Labour Party's ideal of dealing with asylum seekers, this is a great story this morning, is really intelligent. They're going to give each asylum seeker £100 to leave the hotel, and their quote is, you can then go and try and stay with family or anybody else, and you can use that £100. So I just wanted to ask you and Reform a question. So if they've got family to live with and we're giving them £5,200 a year, why the bloody hell didn't they go and live with family in the first place? Or more than that, why did we let them in if they haven't got any family?
It's hard to believe this story, actually. It just sounds like more desperate measures to get through another weekend, another week. The bigger picture, Jeremy, is that I think some 2,000 illegals arrived over the 3 days, I think Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yeah. And there are thousands and thousands massing on the coast of northern France. So those who think, it's going to stop soon because of the weather, whenever there's a break in the weather, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds are pouring across, and thousands more are massing, and it's very, very serious. It's very grim, and everybody is frankly terrified of the consequences. Well,
also over the weekend, and I was going to call you up, but I thought I'd let you have a peaceful Sunday, because the British government, Shabana Mahmood, has announced that they're looking with interest and I guess sort of slight envy at the Danish model, which is being quite strong on immigration, and that they're cozying up to them. And this particular report, in a left-wing thing that I was reading, said, it's interesting, however, since the Labour Party has started to come up with answers from Denmark, reforms had the carpet pulled from underneath its feet. Just watch the bubble burst. Did you read that? It's true.
Well, I did. I think the truth is Shabana Mahmood is rapidly realising she may be in the wrong party. I mean, because she's speaking a language that nobody else in the Labour Party is speaking or wants. So she might find herself fairly isolated pretty quickly. But it is true, Denmark they've achieved great success recently by being much tougher, as reform would be, and they've almost eradicated the problem.
It's really interesting. Shabana Mahmood, I mean, that'd be a one, wouldn't it? Shabana Mahmood defects to reform. The other thing, not that you've ever been anywhere near prison, I can't say I was particularly shocked by this story this morning. A Palestine Action protester who said to his bosses at Wandsworth Prison, there's a surprise on Friday, could I just go to my brother's wedding on Saturday? And they went, absolutely not a problem. If you go at 10, will you come back at 5? He hasn't returned. That's the third high-profile mistake. And look at Richard Tice, got his head in his hands. Prison release in the past 2 weeks. I honestly, I know they're all in for Lammy now. I mean, how he ever makes any... I can't have that. How embarrassing, Richard Tice, is it about this country in so many... I mean, a fiasco's one thing. This is beyond the pale, man. They might as well open the gates of every prison.
I'm going to try and be optimistic again. Maybe it was a very good wedding. Maybe he's sleeping it off, and he'll pop back this morning. I mean, it's so bad you have to laugh, actually. It's just extraordinary. Yeah. What's the point of being in prison if you can just drift in and out to go to the odd party? I mean, the whole point of it is that it is a sanction. Yeah. It's a punishment. and you're going to miss the odd gig. That's the nature of it. I just absolutely beggars belief. It really does.
And to me, I mean, I probably sound like I'm spouting from your playbook, but I don't understand. I said this last week. You commit a crime and you get given 5 years. Well, as it is, you only have to do 3.5. Labour Party's idea of dealing with the prison overcrowding system is to let people out sooner, to commit more crimes, to put people back in who will then be released sooner. Forget building prisons or deporting foreign criminals. These people are, I don't know what they're thinking. It's just ridiculous in my mind.
Well, the real point is the number of accidental releases from prison, I think, has at least trebled in the last 12 months.
Wow.
Since the Labour Party took over the government. When you've got 80,000 people in prison, I guess the odd mistake may happen, the odd one. But the number has trebled, at least trebled, in the last 12 months, I think. And of course, that follows on the very early release of lots of prisoners, hundreds of prisoners, early when the Labour Party came into government. I've been saying ever since then, why do you just deport the 10,000 foreign national criminals clogging up our prisons, consuming hundreds of millions of British taxpayers' cash? Just send them all back to their homes.
But why not also build more prisons and go the other way and say, if I give you 5 years, you're serving 5 years. That's the punishment for the crime you've committed, and you're going to stay there to learn that crime doesn't work. We seem to wipe the backside of perpetrators now, Richard, and not favour victims, and I just don't get it. But I mean, I suppose if you are up in court today and you're listening to this, if you do get a custodial sentence, you've broken the law and you deserve it, but I guess you'll be hoping to go to HMP Wandsworth, which seemingly is quite possibly the worst prison ever.
And then give one of your relatives a ring and say, can you organise a wedding? And I'll pop along.
I want to take a moment, actually, on a serious note. I was speaking to Denny last night, and he was saying that in his village, he just walked down to the Remembrance Sunday, and how extraordinary the numbers were this year. And I was saying earlier that Oliver, my son, is in squirrels, which is like cubs, and he was carrying the flag yesterday, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people. And at a time when so much seems wrong ahead of Armistice Day tomorrow, I think it's really important that people understand. Did you see that interview with the veteran on GMB, Richard? I'm going to play it briefly because this sort of broke my heart. This is Alex Penstone, ladies and gentlemen.
My message is, I can see in my mind's eye there was rows and rows of white stones of all the hundreds of my friends and everybody else that gave their lives for what? The country of today. No, I'm sorry. The sacrifice wasn't worth the result that it is now.
Breaks my heart, that, Richard Tice. Yours as well, I'm guessing.
Totally. I mean, it was heart-wrenching, and it sort of exemplifies where the nation has fallen to. And I was at Boston War Memorial. We had an incredible service there. And amongst it all, some of the hope, the optimism that we do need to take forward was the quantity and brilliance of the cadets and also the scouts. I felt, from amongst the young, that was a real moment for me, very striking indeed. And then I went and looked at some of the villages, some of the war memorials covered in wreaths and poppies. You're right, the numbers are, I think, growing every Remembrance Sunday, and there is a sort of a depth of desire to thank and appreciate who we were, what we did, where we've come from, as part of saying, actually, we need to get back to being that incredible nation.
It's really interesting for me because we seem to have bred a generation of entitled people who don't understand our history, or our history is supposed to be obliterated or wiped out of our education for embarrassment in these new worlds. People like Alec Penstone and his colleagues are the only damn reason we are where we are today, and I think it is massively important that people understand that. Richard, thank you so much, my friend. A busy day ahead. 11 o'clock, you've got a press conference, Reform Today, about small businesses. The way to encourage them is not to levy huge national insurance on them, isn't it?
Absolutely, and all sorts of other daft regulations. So look forward to that. That'll be very important. And we're going to be talking consistently about the importance of small businesses for the UK economy, the millions and millions of them, the people they employ, and these ludicrous employment regulations and extra costs is making people say, why should I bother? And that's a catastrophe. So look out for that later.
Good man. Thank you so much indeed. The Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, MP for Boston and Skegness.